Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. I actually have the honor of having Mr. Kevin Brenner in the house. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, you got it wrong, man. It's Brenner.
I got it wrong. Brenner. I was like, playing it in my head the whole time.
No,
and names are
live. Keep it.
No, of course I'm keeping it. They know that.
No,
it's part of the fun. Yeah, I might have done it on purpose. You don't even know psychology.
Yeah, I know psychology. Hey, no, man, Austin. It's great to be here, man. I'm happy to be here. Happy to share anything I can with your audience. And stoked.
So guys, for anybody that's out there, I want to tell you how this happened in true Austin Linney fashion. Was in the gym, listened to a podcast with him and Hunter Thompson. I was like, boom, I got to meet this guy. Send him a DM. Here we are on the podcast because he's doing exactly what I want to do. So selfishly, this is kind of my master class, but
I'm not even charging you.
So see, this is why you need a podcast.
Yeah.
So I let my guests tell their story and then we kind of go from there. So there's a lot in your story, but I'll kind of let you start where you want to.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, you know, if we're talking real estate and we're talking entrepreneurship and stuff, this really only started for me like 3.5 years ago, which if I look back 3.5 years and I ask myself, and I'm sure some of your other guests or audience members or people listening right now who have started businesses, they look back and like time just looks so, you know, just like, I don't know, man, it's just like, it's crazy. But like 3.5 years ago, I was, you know, young captain in the Air Force, you know, just spending money as quickly as I get it, you know, buying Ducatis, buying nice cars, buying clothes, just like whatever. I'm going to be in the military for 20 years. I'm going to enjoy my 20s. And then, you know, I was playing volleyball with a buddy of mine and he told me he was a first lieutenant. So like, if you're not in the military, like captains make more than first lieutenant. So I was higher ranking. I made more money, right? That's how it works. And he told me he closed on his 7th house. I was like, bro, what? I was like, no.
No, you're like, whoa, hold on.
No. I was like, no, that can't be. So, because I was paying rent, you know, I was a bachelor, you know, hadn't met my wife yet, and I was living in like a little 1-bedroom apartment, paying like $1,200 a month, and I was like, okay, I know how much money I make. I'm like doing this math in my head. I was like, there's no way this dude can afford 7 mortgages. And then he got into this like thing and he was telling me like, no, it's good, Dad. I got tenants in there. They're paying everything. I'm actually making money off of this and I'm getting this. And it just started like my mind started melting. So long story short, he threw me Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read it, changed my life forever. Going forward, just completely shifted how I looked at money. I think I was in a space though, Austin, like where at the time I was like, I'd hit like a ceiling. Like my job was easy. It was like easy to me. And I wasn't necessarily, I don't think, getting the satisfaction from the military. Like I was starting to run into that like classic, like bureaucracy. Like if you want to get anything done, or it's like, oh, you know, like you go into a new office or a new space or something. And it's like, you ask questions like, why do you guys do X, Y, or Z this way? And they're like, well, it's because it's the way it's always been done. And like, just that stupid bureaucracy. And I'm just like, oh man, like I just hit my head against the wall. So I was like in that headspace and I was like, okay, let me just kind of pull this thread a little bit, see where real estate goes and takes me. And I read this book and got hooked. And, you know, fast forward, you know, a couple months, really just a couple months. And I closed on my first quadplex. So I had a VA loan and I bought a quadplex, bought up to 4 units. And the plan was to house hack it. But like 2 weeks after I closed this thing, you know, old Uncle Sam rings the phone and was like, hey, you're going to Washington, D.C. And I was like, okay. So I never actually had to move in, which was kind of a blessing in disguise, you know, because I was like, okay, well, I don't have to move into this place. I can leave the person I bought it from still renting there. And she was this little old lady and recently she just passed away. So rest in peace to Miss Jackie Anderson. But she was the nicest, sweetest old lady. And she lived there for 30 years. She owned it and then sold it to me. Anyway, I move up to DC. I got to renovate these things from afar, so I'm hiring contractors. I'm doing scopes of work. I'm doing like, not Zoom, but like FaceTime, like walkthroughs with the contractors, and just, learning. And then I got hooked up with the guys at Active Duty Passive Income, because they were kind of like my mission. Like they were, active duty military guys building passive income with real estate. And when I joined, there was like 1,200 members in the group. And by the time I had joined, I had closed on the next quadplex. I raised money for it, closed on that one, right up the street, same exact game plan. We're going to renovate the units. We're going to bump the rents like $400 a unit. We're going to cash flow this thing. And I still have them both, and they cash flow great. But I found this group of like 1,200 people doing the exact same thing that I was doing. I was like, oh man, like these are my people. So I kind of latched on. It's just started adding tons and tons of value, answering questions in their Facebook group, blah, 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 all this stuff. And this actually happened, Austin. Like, so literally I was talking to my wife. We were driving past a bar in Arlington, Virginia, where our friends, where we have friends that live near there yesterday. Cause we watched the, I don't know if you're a soccer fan, the England, the England match, the Euro match. And we drove by this bar. And I was like, Beth, do you remember 2 years ago, almost to the day, is when I got hired by Active Duty Passive Income? They called me and they said, you're adding so much value. Do you just want to work for us? And I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah, I could do that. So that was kind of like my Genesis story.
Dude, you're gonna laugh. So it's interesting. The similarities are starting to get a little eerie. So in 7 days, I moved to Lake Tahoe. My mentor is buying his third hotel. And he said, hey, you've been in hospitality for 20 years. Would you like to live on the lake and help me do these hotels? And I said, does the day end in Y? Yes, let's do that. So
there you go.
But long story short, the reason that I have that relationship is because I joined his mastermind and added a ton of value. Mm-hmm. There's never been any money trans I've hired. It was for, a year and a half. Austin's helping, answering, supporting, doing these things. And this is my message to the same thing you said, the same thing I'm trying to say to everybody, is that the days of you thinking that money is actual currency, that's not currency. Money gets you things, but what we're writing about in the book I explained is social capital is a real thing and extremely powerful.
Oh yeah. I think honestly, I think it's way more. And in the environment that we live in the digital age, it's so easy to go and find a group of like-minded individuals and just add value, because there really is no wrong way to add value. Like there's no stupid question. You can ask questions, you can learn. And then when someone else inevitably asks the same question, hey, remember that post I had? Here's all the threads of answers. Just be first to do it and answer those questions. And like, that was something that, I don't know if I was reading something they told me to add value. Like, I don't know. I just felt, I guess, compelled because like everyone was so like-minded and I just wanted to help. Like I felt like I had this knowledge and I wanted to help. I didn't want anything in exchange. And I think that's a big thing. People who have scarcity mindsets, it's always about, ooh, what's in it for me? What do I get?
Sure.
No, you don't think like that. If you want to build that social capital, like Austin is talking about, then go and just add value and do it consistently. Like every day I did a 30-day live challenge for ADPI, like when I was just a regular member. And I was standing, like literally, I was on vacation with my wife. We weren't married yet. So my girlfriend, we were in Puerto Rico. I'm standing in this pool, this hotel rooftop pool, staring at my phone, shaking, by the way, because I am so nervous. I'm not a social media, like I wasn't a social media guy at the time. Like I had no brand. No one knew who the heck I was. And she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I'm answering this guy's question about like rehabs or like something silly. And I was just like, She's like, we're on vacation. And I was like, I know, but like, I feel like this, if I keep doing this, I feel like something good's going to happen. And and it did. And that was just the beginning, man. And then I get into the whole, fun stuff. And I could talk about that for days.
And we will, so selfishly. So it's, it's interesting. I look at all the this, I mentioned it, you probably don't remember, my business partners a helicopter pilot in the military, and I was a meth addict, and I was homeless, and I was an alcoholic for 20 years, and I've been sober for 2.5 years. And there's two people that I will go into business with in 2.5 seconds. That's military people and people in recovery.
Yeah.
Those are my two people, because they understand sacrifice, but more importantly, they understand community. They understand team. They understand that, I didn't get sober myself, or I didn't get through the military myself. And I don't know if it's just my universe right now, but it feels like real estate and the military is having its time.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I couldn't tell you. I mean, I must have interviewed 60, 40 of them that are in the military, and they're doing real estate. I feel like it's kind of having
it's such a great though. Like Eric Upchurch talks about this all the time. It's such a
episode 5. Yeah.
Episode 5. Check it out. Eric Upchurch. So he talks about this all the time, but it's like the perfect mission, because when you leave the military, so I'm transitioning out. I'm on my PTO, my paid time off.
Okay.
I'm burning it all. And I officially get out the end of August. So whenever this one comes out at the end of August, I'll be officially done. But the point is, it's real estate is fills that mission for people that they're missing, because like when you're in the service, you have something that's bigger than yourself, and like when, when stuff, gets bad and you got to embrace the suck a little bit. You're like, okay, well, you can like kind of rest easy knowing that you're doing this for the greater good and all of this. And you could kind of, not as dramatically, but take that same role with real estate and build something, as opposed to just going and working for someone else. And not that that's terrible, not that that's a bad thing, but if you go and work for someone else into a mission that you don't believe in, then yeah, there's no alignment. But I think entrepreneurship and real estate offer that like ability for someone who has built and functioned a team in the military to look at a mission. Okay, my mission is to acquire cash flowing real estate. Okay, well, let me build and function a team. I've done that before. Let's go. And it's a skill set that, a lot of military members and service members share. And I think people on the outside, they don't share it because society kind of trains us a little bit to think more selfishly than we should. And if you look at the most successful entrepreneurs, they're go-givers, and they give first, give always. And that opportunity comes around like crazy. And they're they're professional builders of that social capital, like you mentioned.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so what's interesting, because I remember the conversation with another guy that I've learned a lot from, is I was walking a flip with him in Arizona, and we're walking like 7 flips that day of his. And we get to like the third one, and he looks me dead in the face, and he goes, "You don't love this." And I was like, how do you know what I'm thinking right now? And at this point, I've sold one. We're selling the third one. I gave one away in a divorce. So these are all my single family houses that were Airbnbs I started out with. And I'm much more like you. Like I want to kind of be the point person, or I want to grow a fund, or I want to park money with other people, or I want to build businesses or community. And so when was that moment for you when you started thinking about bigger things? What happened?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, so I had bought these quadplexes, and I was running a couple Airbnbs up in DC. So I'm in DC now, and I'm running this stuff, and I'm doing these remote rehabs. And I had that moment, kind of like you described, like, I don't love this. Like, I don't really love this asset management. I don't love the fact that I have to beg, borrow, and steal to get a contractor to come over to my place to do something. Like, even though I have property management in place, I don't love the fact that I have to babysit my property managers and make sure that, like, I just, whatever, like there's got to be a better and easier way. And through this discovery process and working with ADPI and being surrounded by such rock stars like Tim Kelly and Eric Upchurch and Adam Labar and Mark Yansich and Victoria, and like all these outstanding founders and entrepreneurs in their own right. And then having the opportunity to be on the podcast and co-host the podcast where I'm meeting, the Grant Cardones, literally like the top real estate investors in the country, I learned that I needed to operate within my strengths. And I knew my strengths were raising capital and putting deals together. And I knew that because I'd done it before once. And I really enjoyed it. Like I really liked it. But at the time, my thought process was like, okay, well, if I need to raise capital, I have to have a deal first. And that's not uncommon, right? That's not an uncommon thought. So I was trying to look for deals, and I started a group, and we were like going to syndicate mobile home parks and do all this stuff, like whatever. And then I just stepped back, and I was talking to a mentor of mine, and I was like, I really don't like this whole finding deals thing. Like, I don't like it. And he looked at me, he's like, why don't you just start a fund? And I was like, what do you mean? And like, I was like, yeah, I'm trying to do that. I need a deal first. He's like, no. Why don't you start a fund that invests in other deals? And I was like, you can do that. I was like, and meanwhile, this guy's an attorney, right? Like he's a lawyer, and he's like, yeah, like that's what I do for people. Mm-hmm. And I was like, tell me more. So I took him out to coffee, and he's just kind of dropping all this knowledge on me. And before I even joined ADP, I had this idea of like helping millennials create wealth, and like that was going to be my niche, like millennials and military, and we're going to help them create wealth, and it's going to be awesome and do all this stuff. And I never really had anything developed. And then when COVID hit, so like March of 2020, right? Like when it really started to hit the fan, they sent me home from the Pentagon. They're like, hey, listen, you're going to work from home now. And I was like, all right, well, I can't really do my job from home. And they're like, we know. And I was like, okay. So I was like, all right. And I had all this time, and I was like, I am never going to get an opportunity like this to have a stable income and launch a business that could change the world. Like I'm never going to have this opportunity again. Once in 100-year global pandemic, like, come on. Mm-hmm. So I pressed, and I built the team, and Nimbus Capital was born, and it's really just an awesome concept, and that I've been nurturing for so long, and it's finally coming together, and we have like 600 units under contract, and we're raising capital, and people are clawing their way to get in. And it's just like, I look back on it now, and I'm just like, why would people want to give me their money again?
But I'm going to tell you why. I figured something out, and I brought this to a couple people's attention. If you want to position yourself as a fund or a director of a fund or whatever you want to call it, there has to be a direct line from A to B, right? And so when people look at you, they say, okay, military, he's where I want to be. How do I put my money with him, and how do I get next to him? And then I can maybe some of that's going to rub off, right? And so it's the thing that I champion every. I spent my whole life working next to Hispanics in the hotel and restaurant business, and I have a young kid down here in San Antonio who's got 860 units. He's 23 years old. He's been doing it since he was 17. He's amazing. And I asked him the first day I ever met with him. I said, "What are you doing? What are you doing right now?" And he looks at me and he goes, "I'm buying apartments." I go, "No, you're not." I said, "You're showing every plumber, every sheetrocker, every tile layer that they can own the fucking building." Mm-hmm. So there's a direct line that they can put in you. And he goes, "Well, that makes it way different." And I was like, "Yeah, it's a big impact that you're doing, and you'll be able to raise money, and you'll be able to do you know what they've never had ever? A problem raising money." Yeah. Ever.
Yeah. And I think that goes into, when we talk about this business, and we talk about, I'm famous. I think on every podcast I've been on lately, I keep saying the same line. Like, there's no shortage of undercapitalized syndicators in today's market. There's just no shortage. I mean, and this is no shade to like the gurus who are putting people that going through their weekend courses, and they're putting people out into the world, and it's no shade on them, because that's a business. I get it. And they're educating people, and people want to do it. And there's probably a niche for some of those, but in any business, the cream always rises to the top. So 80-20 principle, right? Your 20% of syndicators are going to own the majority of the commercial real estate. If you're talking multifamily, if you're talking whatever, they're going to own that bit, right? And then everyone else is fighting for scraps. So how can you position yourself to be in that top 20%? And I thought about this like a lot. And I was like, okay, well, I can go and fight and claw and drag my knuckles and try to get like a 40 unit and then like scale up to like a 60 unit. And then, 3 years later, I might get like 120 unit. And a lot of people have done that. But in my head, I was like, well, these syndicators are either going to sink or swim. They're either going to raise capital and find deals and put everything together themselves and advance, or they're not going to do anything. They might do one deal, 2 deals, gets too difficult. And they're just like, okay, I'm going to sit on my laurels. I got 200 units. This is exactly what I needed, and they're fine. And I thought, well, what are the ones that are really successful going to do? Well, the really successful ones are eventually going to have to start funds or operate as a private equity firm, because that's what private equity is. Private equity just places money into different asset vehicles. That's all they do. Real estate is just one small slice of an asset that private equity invests in. It's just a small bit of their portfolio. So if you reverse engineer the entire process, and where I was like, okay, well, I'm going to skip the whole drag my knuckles and be a syndicator phase. And I'm going to jump right to the launch my own private equity firm. And yes. I did that, and people thought I was crazy, and people thought like, where's this guy coming out of, he doesn't know anything. He didn't, he doesn't even have a finance degree or anything like that. Don't matter. It doesn't matter what degrees on the wall, because it's all about that social capital, because I was able to build up with these folks. So long story short, Austin, like we have this platform now, this fund of funds where we've partnered with, some of the top operators in the country, and they all need capital, and they all can't get it from big private equity, because big private equity has so much dry powder that their minimum investments are 10, 15, $20 million. Well, that destroys any GP end on a deal. In most deals, unless you're talking 200 million plus a deal. So any deal that's under $200 million, which is a lot of deals, like then you're in business, right? So all of this money is out there and it can't be placed, but there's a need for micro private equity. And that's what I call Nimbus Capital. We're micro private equity with a missing puzzle piece in our syndicators and our partners' capital stacks. Sure, they might get 80% from Fannie and Freddie, or they might get 91% from big private equity to fund their deal. They still got to come to the table with 8, 9, 10%. And that, depending on the size of the deal, could be $10 to $15 million. So what are you going to do when your investor list is tapped out? You're going to go back to big private equity and sell the rest of your equity? No, I don't think so. I mean, unless you don't want to make any money as GP, there needs to be someone, that comes in, and that's where Nimbus Capital comes in. We work directly. We built this social capital. We built these relationships with our partners, and they're high performing, and they're pumping our deal flow with deals that we already love because we vetted them. We know exactly what they do. And oh, by the way, they have $2 billion already in real estate, 23 years experience, and almost 18,000 units. So it's like, okay, these people are doing it. They're crushing it. How can we get involved? And then simply we work with them and say, hey, we love this deal. You bring it to us. How much money do you need? You need $2 million? Great. Here's $2 million. And we're able to, so that's what we offer the syndicators. And on the other end, the value proposition for the investors is great, because it's like you're an investor, and what's the biggest thing that Austin, what's the biggest thing as an investor that you're worried about when you invest passively?
Well, they're probably worried about when they're going to get their money back. They're worried about the return, and they're worried about if they're diversified enough to not get tripped up. Exactly.
The big thing, the first two that you said, when they're going to get their money back, that's just a function of the operation.
That's just a human. That's just a human behavior.
That's normal. Like, and any investment, you're going to want to know that. But the diversification, that's the biggest play. And when passive investors invest with regular syndicators, especially these undercapitalized syndicators who might have been, they haven't even gone full cycle on a deal. It might be their first deal. That's why it's so hard for these folks to raise capital, because they don't have a track record. Yeah. No one knows who the heck they are. And and sure, they might get lucky and an investor goes and puts money with them. But what if that deal goes sideways? That investor's out money. But if you invest in, like a vehicle that, Nimbus Capital operates like in the fund model, then your money gets aggregated, put into the pot with everyone else's money. And that money then is diversified across 4, 5, 6, 7 different deals with different markets, or in different markets with different operators, all who are proven, all who have gone full cycle. I mean, I can't say that you're eliminating all the risk. You're not. No one can say that. but you sure are hedging most of the risk. So if you can take that worry off the table for your investors by just coming up with a creative model, then that's a really, really good thing. There's obviously cons with the model as far as double promotes go, and you got to talk about, you got to come up with creative solutions to do that. And then ultimately in raising any capital, you have to really hone in on your ideal client, because you can't just be raising from everywhere. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've done a really good job. My team, has done a really good job of helping us zone in on a very narrow, thin ideal client that is super underserved, and we are having wild success with them. And it's been gangbusters, man.
So this guy's my new hero. I'm totally going to move wherever he's moving and just follow him around.
I'm in DC, man. Just come on.
Never mind. I changed. We're going to Tahoe.
Never mind.
So what I'm interested, so is that basically what you just said? Is that basically your thesis? Is because I guess the bigger issue, and because I'm one of my coaching clients is talking about raising a fund. He's a big developer out of New York. And I keep telling them all the time, like, you've got to nail down you can't be over everywhere. You got to be here. And so do you think that's why y'all have had so much success, is because you kind of narrowed down, and maybe over time that'll widen a little bit, but it's kind of like nailed down to exactly what you're looking for, and kind of stay away from the shiny object stuff?
Well, I think everyone tries to catch or cast a wide net, and that's human nature. Like it makes sense if you're thinking about it, like, okay, I need to raise a bunch of capital. Let me raise from a whole bunch of different people, all who have money. And that's fine. That might work for you. It all depends on your network. But what we found that is the most effective is how, and this is for any business, this isn't just fun, but what problem are you solving? Like what is your solution? If your solution is very general, then I think you're going to have a problem bringing, you're going to get a lot of tire kickers that way. But what we made our solution about was helping other real estate professionals. So helping realtors understand how to create wealth, because that is just something that they don't know how to do. They're salespeople, and they're really good at selling stuff. They're also very good at spending money they don't have. And what I'm trying to do is right that ship. And it's really, really, that's part of our niche that we really target. And by helping them, by providing a solution, a masterclass, an ebook, a podcast, all of this stuff, that just all this value, and going to where these people operate. The key part about narrowing down your ideal client from who you're raising capital from, you want to narrow down who that is so you can figure out where they live and go knock on their door.
Yeah, I call it where are they hanging out at the water cooler?
Exactly.
So my buddy manages 270 agents in Northeast Texas. So I mean, that's your guy.
Yeah, let's get on. Yeah, no, but seriously, I mean, we're doing like crazy things, Austin. We're doing like.
Well, you know what's interesting? There's two segments of the population that scare me to death. Okay, for multiple reasons. One, they don't take care of themselves. And one, they spend too much of money. And I know it's about to sound really crazy, but it's teachers and real estate agents. They scare the shit out of me. Teachers don't take care of themselves. They don't take care of themselves. They're always at their students' beck, in which I thank you, but like they don't take care of themselves health wise. They're not taught financial literacy on how to invest some of their stuff. And then real estate agents, the same thing. They're beholden to their clients. They don't take care of themselves. They drink too much, and then they have all this money, but yet they have nothing to show for it. So it's like so really, if I'm hearing you correctly, more than anything, you're an educator of vehicles, right? Like, hey, here's a better place. We're going to care about you. We're going to steward your money.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then, and the way we do business is really simple. Everything is, simplicity is really, really important to me, because at the end of the day, a confused mind says no. In any value proposition they have, if someone leaves and they're confused, they're either going to say, oh, let me talk to my wife about it, or let me talk to my spouse about it. And that means no. Or they're going to, they're just not going to say anything, and they're never going to hit you up again, because they just don't understand. And they're going to, humans take the path of least resistance. Right. So if you can make something that's very simple, do it. And that's why we did everything 80-20. So every bit of cash flow, every rent check, everything that comes back from every investment that we're invested in, whether that's the equity side of it, whether that's the cash flow side of it, just gets split 80-20. No complex prefs, no 3 or 5 tiered waterfalls, no crazy, like just none of that. And then we don't have any management fees. We don't have fees. We don't have dispo fees. We don't have acquisition fees. We don't have any of that stuff that, you know, people tack on to make more money in private equity. And what that does is it effectively eliminates the double promote, which is another big objection for people who are getting into fund of funds. They're like, well, I'm going to get promoted twice then because the syndicator's taking their end and you're taking your end. Well, yeah, that's a flaw of the system. It's always going to be like that. I don't work for free. However, I'm going to make it as easy for you as I can. So if you want the utmost diversification, I call it the ultimate diversification. If you want direct access to deals that, let's be honest, Austin, there is no MLS for these things. They all get done backdoor, broker to broker, handshake deals, direct to seller. If you want access to that, then, you know, and you want access to a lot of it, then there's an option for you. And then if you want to not get, you know, nickeled and dimed on fees, then there you go. So kind of a 3-tiered value, value proposition for our ideal clients. And, you know, that's before we talk about, you know, in my masterclass that I teach realtors, and I don't know when this one's going to drop, but I am doing a masterclass this week and then in the next coming weeks, but for lab coat agents, so there are 140,000 realtors. I'm going to brief them, as many of them as I can at once, about what it means to be accredited. Like the basics, the complete basics that you and I like live and breathe. What does accreditation mean? What you know, what is depreciation in an investment? What is bonus depreciation? What is a cost segregation? What does it mean to be a real estate professional? What is active income and what is passive income? How can you create more passive income? Like all of this stuff is knowledge that most people on earth have let's call it in the United States. Most people in the United States have no idea about. But this is how the rich become wealthy.
Yep.
And if you can provide value to someone in that sphere, capital raising is going to be very, very easy for you. But yeah, man, we're working on some really cool stuff right now, like working with specific brokerages to have like a brokers only fund at that broker level, like set up a 506B just for that brokerage, or like, you know, doing some really cool stuff.
So I think what we should do is I should host you out in Tahoe with your team. Because I know Eric's right there. So
yeah. Oh yeah. Well, if I have to see Eric, the deal's off.
Eric. But what's interesting, right, is I think that, and I revert back to something earlier you said about finding the deal. I think for me, like everything is based off my lifestyle. And I think when the position that you put yourself in and where you've positioned yourself is that you're the one who, like, that's why I got in. That's why we're getting into building and construction and not flipping, because I want to control the process from start to finish. Because I'm busy, I'm traveling. Like, yes, we're going to do that. My team's great. And so like you kind of not knowingly, you knowingly in a quick amount of time position yourself as something unique, something as needed. And I really think that ultimately, I would imagine that the team, you and your team, feel that the sky's the limit, because it really is a different, like a perfect example. We're doing a lot of development stuff. You know what there's no money for? Pre-development. Doesn't exist.
Oh yeah.
Like, because it's a risk, right? And it's cash. So it's like, my thought process is, if you could figure out a way to hedge that and create a fund that way, like you would be beating them off. You'd be beating them out with a stick, right? So there's certain ways that you have to look at the business as a whole and create something that, you know, is unique to its thing, but what people want.
Yeah, and you have the book behind you, Raising Capital, Hunter's book. When I before I was on that podcast, and I think it was episode 300. Don't quote me on that, but before I was on that show, I had called Hunter. You know, we were just texting back and forth and just chatting, and you know, kind of he kind of clued me in on a couple things, and he's like, hey, dude, like, listen, I know it seems like raising capital right now is going to be difficult, it seems like this daunting task for you right now. But trust me, once you go through a couple of these funds, he said just that. He's like, raising capital is only as difficult. It's only difficult until it's no longer difficult. Like once you have a track record, once you have deals, to put the money in, then it becomes, oh my God, I have so much capital, I got to put it into these deals. And that's where you have to get creative. Because for us, we're, this fund that we have, Stratus Fund 1, it's for multifamily, right? We're putting it into multifamily, B and A class multifamily. We got the operators, we got all that stuff, but that's just the beginning. Yeah, and real estate, if you're thinking 30,000 feet up, real estate is just the beginning. In 10 years,
I knew you were my best friend, because real estate, I'll be honest with you, doesn't do much for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great vehicle, right?
It's a great vehicle, exactly.
But think about diversification at a big level. Think about traditional private equity. What traditional private equity is not investing passively into multifamily deals. They're either owning the deals along with a large portfolio of other stuff, or they're lending the money for the deals. That's what like if you can build a business that gets as close to fractional lending as the government will allow you to do, you will make a ton of money. So like traditional private equity, if you think about it, Austin, it's okay. Well, so-and-so, your friend who's got 840 units needs a construction loan or needs bridge debt. All right, great. We'll offer that to you at 3.5% or 4%. We'll leverage our banking relationships with some of the largest banks out there to get a loan at 2%. We're going to take a 2-point spread. Well, on a normal size loan that you would get for a residential property, yeah, okay, great, 2%, big deal. Not a lot of money. But on a $200 million loan, that's a lot of money, And you guess what? You raise capital for that fund that is doing the banking essentially. And you're lending that out and you're getting massive returns for your investors. You're getting returns for yourself. And then at the end of the day, it's what are you going to do with the money? What's your legacy? What's your impression? What's your impact? Because money, like you said earlier, we talked about it, man, it just comes and goes, dude. It's like, it's like, leaves in the air during fall. They just flow.
It's just tools. And now we get to where you're going to get the most excited, even though we talked about your favorite subject, is what you're going to do with that money, which I think is one of the greatest things I've ever heard, and kind of talk about the impact they are creating in active duty, passive income, and among other things.
Yeah. So, and this, I was working with Eric on this and working with some other folks. But what I decided when I launched Nimbus Capital was, it's not about the money for me. The money, it's obviously a career for me, and it's a very lucrative, arguably being a fund manager is the most lucrative career out there. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be, what's the guy like Scrooge or whatever, who like has all the money and no friends. Like that's not my life plan. What I wanted to do was figure out, okay, where's a cause that I can, put the money into that is going to create good and something I believe in. And I found the folks at Veterans Community Project, and I freaking love their mission. And so there's a little over 34,000 homeless vets in the United States. And that sounds like a big number, right? But it's really not that big of a number in a country of 330 plus million people. In fact, it's a very solvable problem if you look at it, especially when you consider all the services that are available for veterans from the VA and from other nonprofits. Like there's tons of services out there, but it was just missing that connection. So VCP came up and they said, okay, well, we're going to build tiny homes for homeless vets. And instead of just building tiny homes and sticking a veteran in there and said, good luck, here's a house, which is helpful. They did one more, and they built these community centers, and they're buying the properties and they're developing these community centers. And in those community centers, they bring all of the local nonprofits. They bring representatives from the VA. They bring job training services. They bring healthcare services to get everyone squared away. So they're taking people directly off the streets, giving them shelter, giving them food, then giving them all the services they need. And then 6 months to a year later, these people leave with jobs, with apartments, with a purpose again, and they go back to society, with, like I said, with purpose. And that to me was a great impact. And I said, okay, how can I get involved? And we were able to interview them on the podcast, on the ADPI podcast, their CEO. And from there, I was just sold. And I was like, okay, well, how can I get Nimbus involved? So what I decided is that every fund I set up is going to have an impact partner, every single fund. And this fund, Stratus Fund 1, the impact partner is Veterans Community Project, kind of gave that away. But what we're doing is every investor, we give the investor, we promoted them among our investors, say, hey, here's a link, donate. We match the donations up to $1,000. And our goal is $50,000. And that $50K builds a house for a homeless vet, takes them off the street for a year, and gets them all the services they need. So I can have a direct impact on someone's life. And that, and whether they know it or not, I don't care. But if I can do that and start building this legacy and start contributing and giving back to society, because that's the power of money to me. Like donating $20 is awesome. Donating 20,000, then you're getting somewhere. But you have to, you have to have the capacity to do that, right? So I think, and as we grow, I've already decided on our next impact partner, and we'll be announcing that shortly. But it's, I just want to be able to make an impact in the community that I just recently left, the military community, and it's near and dear to my heart. And I think this is just one way of giving back, and then the other way, obviously, is giving your time. And I'm very interested as I free my time up to give my time back to help.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting, entrepreneurship at its core, right? Investing at its core, sometimes from afar gets a bad name or a bad rap for somebody that's not into it. And really what it is it's to create this visceral impact in others and in community, right? And, I see this in the mastermind that we started for people that have got out in recovery. And, these are moms and now she works for me. And I'm just like, she's lost 40 pounds. She's doing great. She's going to be a coach. And it was like that meeting with people that didn't judge me. They were here to support. They were here for their time. And I could tell that your heart, my heart, that's where we're at. And so these things that we do, or these things that they label us as, are just merely means to create greater impact. And it takes businesses, it takes commerce to create bigger waves of impact, right? And so when people say, "Oh, you're just working all the time, and you're just pocketing more money," it's like, I'm pocketing more money so I can go make a greater impact. Yeah. It's as simple as that. It's really the binary products of that it's relative. You travel more and you get the car, but when you attach a mission to it, that's where you create this movement that's bigger than yourself.
Yeah. And I feel like, the more stuff you have is great. Now I'm like one of those guys. I'm like an experienced person, like my wife's like, you're so hard to shop for because you just want experiences. I was like, yeah, I know. Take me to dinner. Yeah. But I that's kind of how I function. But I think having stuff is great and everything, but there's only so much stuff that you can have. And then you got to start thinking about what really you want to leave behind as your legacy. And the earlier you can start thinking about that, and that could change and it could shift, and it will, I promise you it will. But starting and just doing something and just volunteering your time. And that's the best way. It's the cheapest way to do it. Just volunteer your time into something that you care about. And you never know what relationships you will make. And you never know what social capital you will bring, will come up and what that will mean. But the people who are always just stacking cash and, putting in their mattresses and putting in their walls, for what? To pay more taxes? Okay, cool. I don't get it. But I guess I think people like you and me, we may be cut from a different cloth, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, 100%. I try to tell people all the time, the new currency in the world is experiences. People want to feel that impact. They want to feel that experience. They want to do something that hasn't been done before, and they want to go tell their friends they did it.
Yeah.
Dude, I waited on rich people my whole life at the lake in Austin. And their favorite thing to do is tell the friends they did something that they didn't do yet.
And wait till you wait till you start raising capital in these funds, Austin, and then the rich guys are telling their other rich buddies on the golf course, "Hey, I just got into a Nimbus Capital fund."
I got it.
What's Nimbus Capital? That's my. I shouldn't be making fun of my investors. If you're in,
no, that's all right. You're just having a little fun. It's okay. Nobody will listen. So, if people want to follow your journey or they want to find out what you got going on, how would they do that?
Yeah. So, check us out. It's www.rise, R-I-S-E with W-I-T-H, Nimbus, Nimbus.com. And you can also check us out on social media, rise_with Nimbus on Instagram and Facebook and all of that stuff. But yeah, I think, if you really want to get in touch with me, honestly, just shoot me an email. It's kevin@risewithnimbus.com. We have some great opportunities live right now. I don't know when this episode is going to get published, but it might not be live when when this gets published. But we're going to be launching new funds shortly. So if you miss out on this one, there'll be more, and there'll be more opportunities, because this is just the beginning for us. And we've found our niche, and we're really out there to help as many people as we can, whether they're realtors looking to create wealth or they're veterans that we need to get off the street.
I love it. Guys, everybody that listens to this podcast knows me very well. I truly believe, and I had lunch with some friends yesterday who are syndicators in Austin, and they're invested in a couple hundred units. And I told them, I said, listen, I would give you money, and if you told me the deal, I would tell you to stop talking to me. Like, I just don't even care, because that's how much I believe in their characters, how much I believe in them as people, right? And in the short amount of time that I've got to know you, I feel the same way about you. So I have no concerns why the fund is so important, because I can tell what you stand for, and I can tell it's, you're just getting warmed up. And when you're out there, guys, and you're starting your career, or you're shifting careers, or you're moving into investing, this type of character, these type of qualities is the currency. Nobody cares if you know how to flip 100 houses. They care what you stand for, what you do. Do you say you're going to do what you're going to do? And I think that drum needs to be beaten a lot louder.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, Austin, no one invests in deals. They invest in people. If you're an investor and you want to be a passive investor, and someone comes to you with a great deal and they're a crappy human being, don't invest. Mm-hmm. There's other deals out there with people who don't suck.
Dude,
so like,
dude, I'm not
saying put your money with me. I'm just saying, like, find someone who doesn't suck. Find someone who you agree with. Find someone who you can vibe with. Because there's so many deals out there. We just got to learn to open our eyes,
Dude, I had a meeting with my construction guys the other day, and I said, guys, I'm about to tell you how we're going to make it big. Are you ready? I was like, this is it, dude. This is it, guys. And they're like, what? And I'm like, if we don't be assholes. Because I've spent 2 years in the construction space in private equity, and everybody's rude and they don't give a shit about you. And I was like, if we're just do what we say we're going to do, and we be nice, we're going to be fine.
It's shocking how that works. It's crazy, man.
Guys, if you got some value from this episode, make sure you send it out to your friends, share it with somebody that would enjoy it, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.